Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Nairobi Ideas Podcast, a podcast that gives a public platform to the Kenyans changing the world with their big ideas. Nairobi Ideas Podcast is brought to you by the Mawazo Institute, a Nairobi-based research institute focused on female thought leadership and public engagement with research. I'm your host, Dr. Rose Mutiso, CEO of the Mawazo Institute. We are excited to launch the Nairobi Ideas Podcast as part of the 2018 Africa Science Week Kenya. For our first few episodes, we'll be chatting with scientists from our Faces of Kenyan Science campaign. This is a multimedia, multi-platform campaign featuring 20 Kenyan scientists who showcase the diversity of Kenya's contributions to the global scientific enterprise. We'll be sharing stories of their work and scientific journeys through a number of creative outlets, including this podcast. So today our guest is Dr. Hamisi Babusa, who is a senior administrator and lecturer in Kiswahili at Kenyatta University. He's also the first author to write Kiswahili science fiction novellas inspired by biology and astronomy. Hi, Hamisi.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Or actually, should I say shikamo, ndugu?
Marahaba.
Oh, what is it? What is the correct?
But the shikamo, you can say it's for, let's say, a young.
Okay.
Greeting an older person. Or their student greeting his teacher.
You know, I'm thinking of you as my Kiswahili teacher, that's why.
Okay.
I want to stand up and say, shikamo.
Asante, marahaba.
Bwana Babusa.
Bwana Babusa. Asante sana. And the meaning of shikamo is respect greetings. More means legs.
Oh,
so as in you are, like if it's your parent, you are bending down and touching there.
Really? Okay, so we are so excited to have you here. There's so much to cover. I'm very excited to get to the science fiction Kiswahili novellas, but let's just pace ourselves.
Yeah.
So just to get a little bit of a sense of who you are, where you started, just to see you in context, maybe tell us a little bit about your background briefly. Like, where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? What kind of things interested you?
I was born in Tana River County, in a town called Garsen, and that's where I grew up. I came to Nairobi, Kenyatta University, where I did my 3 degrees.
Why Kiswahili? Is it because you're a Costarian? You're like, Kiswahili kitukuzwe?
No, it's not because I'm a Costarian. One, it's because I can say I'm very African, as in I love African, their origin. Africa was where the first civilization took place, and it's where even the first university.
So are you describing the universities like the old universities in Egypt and in the north?
Yes.
And in what is now Mali and Western Africa?
Yes, exactly, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Fast forwarding to where you are now, what would you describe yourself as? Like, what is the one sentence response to what do you do? Oh.
Okay, I can say I'm an all-round person. I'm a lecturer, an administrator, an author, and an artist. Artist means I'm also a musician, although retired a bit because of a lot of work on writing. I used to perform live music.
What kind of music? Is it vocal?
Vocals and playing the drums.
The drums?
Yes, I'm playing the drums, yes.
Wow, this is a very diverse repertoire you have. Like, what is the thread that connects all of these things?
I can say just the arts. What I believe is that if you discover that you are talented in one art, you may be talented in all the others. You just need to explore.
So would it be fair to say that perhaps the Kiswahili language is what is infused in all your different art forms? Or, what is the kind of connection point to your academic and teaching interest in Kiswahili language?
Yeah, Kiswahili language is infused in all of them. Because in music, I love even listening to Kiswahili music. Like right now, the bongo music and then the old Tanzanian rumba music. And even Kenyans, we have like Les Wanyika, Simba Wanyika. So those are my favorite music. In books now, when I'm reading books, I love going out of the Kiswahili books. Yes, to get more creative, to see how the Western writers are writing their novels and then try to fuse them also back into Kiswahili. Yeah,
and actually I'd like to, drill a little bit deeper to this idea of kind of Kiswahili literature.
Yes.
How extensive do you think the library of Kiswahili literature we have is? Obviously in high school we all studied the set books.
Yes.
In primary school we read some books, but my impression then is that, we read Kiswahili books during Kiswahili class and then the rest of the time we read regular English language books, and that there wasn't as rich a library of Kiswahili books out there that would be interesting and accessible to all of us.
Yeah, what I can say is that the Kiswahili writers are somehow still enclosed somehow, although I know most of them will not like me saying this, but they're still enclosed somewhere where their writing skills still the old style, where you just narrate a story, a normal story, baba ameenda, akaanguka, akampata mama, akaoa, akazaa. But if you look at the Western writers, they have gone further. You can get a lot of...
There's a lot more texture,
yes, a lot
styles,
of
genres.
Yes. So that's why I even tried. I said, let me try. Most publishers were saying, hey, how can you write science in Kiswahili? It will be a very tough book. I told them, no, it won't be tough because I'll even put a kamusi, a dictionary inside the book. So that if you see a scientific term,
you can go see a glossary.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, on that point, you're quite a prolific writer. I mean, I think in 2 years, you wrote 5 of your Makumba novellas. And these are aimed at teenagers, like young adults.
Yes, young
Kiswahili
adults.
Version of young adults.
Version, yes.
And I'm just going to, for the listeners, let me just read out some of the titles. I love them. Makumba katika safari ya tonge, which means Makumba in the journey of the ball of food.
Yes.
Makumba na selidamu nyeupe, which is Makumba and the white blood cells. I mean, after all of my years studying science, I had no idea what the Kiswahili word white blood cells is. And this is my favorite. Makumba na majanabi.
Wow, okay.
People, did you know that majanabi means aliens? Yes. I mean, like, I let me tell you, if you knew that, please send a text to us on our social media platforms. And I think we should give you like a free sticker or something because that is impressive. So,
and I'm giving a free novella.
A free novella?
Yeah, for the one who will get correct.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay, but now I think we've already told them the answer. Maybe we should have a quiz at the end. Let's have a quiz at the end.
Yes.
So that we can see who are the Kenyans who know these terms.
Okay.
Okay, so the first person, let's agree, the first person after we release this podcast who gets back to us at the end will come up with a term and you get back to us with the Kiswahili translation. You get one novella.
One novella, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we have agreed. It's in the open. So, okay, tell us a little bit about Makumba. How did the idea start and what are these books about in a nutshell?
Okay, I loved biology a lot. In fact, I love the sciences. I love watching even movies of aliens, these science fiction movies. I love reading about, I can't remember this. There's this scientist who just died recently. The one who sit on...
Steve Hawkins.
Yes, I really love his
like
books.
A Brief History of Time and all of those.
Yes. I really loved his ideas. So I can say I'm somehow a scientist, but maybe I didn't take that field. So I said, now, I looked at how you are learning science. So I said the teacher comes in and then say, okay, today we are learning about digestion. Okay, these are teeth, a diagram there. Then you are labeling. Somehow I can say the way students react, it's like science is another thing that they won't understand. So I'm into the literature. And I know people love reading books for leisure, just relaxing, even kids. So I said, why don't we go into literature? We make the kids love reading, but as they are reading, they're just learning science involuntarily. So that they just discover that there's no teacher forcing them to learn, but at the end of the novel, reading the novella, they have understood some concept. So that was the idea that came to me. Now I had to get a story. I had to research more about the digestion system, the circulatory system, all the biology that the students are learning. The challenge was now getting a story so that you can infuse this knowledge. It took me around a year to think and get the idea. So then I said, okay, let's think of a grandfather who is a professor. Let's have the two main characters. The grandfather who's a professor who created Gajabu. Gajabu is Gari ya Ajabu. It's like, I can say, equivalent of a time-traveling machine. So he invented it. He was a scientist, a professor of science. And then he had this grandchild, the main character called Makumba, who used to visit them, to live with the grandfather during holidays when he was out of school. So Safari ya Tonge, the first novella, was when the grandfather was showing off the machine. Look at this machine. Yeah, it can travel, he was explaining. Then they accidentally found themselves traveling to the grandmother's digestion system. So using this machine now, I had the ability now to go anywhere and explain the concepts to the students. But to become like a small god, you can do anything with the creativity.
Because it's so exciting and it takes them outside of their everyday.
Exactly. And I know
and
kids.
Transports them.
Yes, and I know kids
literally
usually
and figuratively.
They love fantasy. They like watching Superman, Spider-Man. That's the idea, how the idea came.
I mean, I would love to see these made into a movie. I mean, if there are any Hollywood producers who are looking for the next big thing, you know where to find this man. Just shoot us an email and we'll connect you right away.
Oh, thank you very much.
So, something that has always interested me is this idea of vocabulary.
Yes.
In Kiswahili especially. You know, I remember the Kamusi was a very thin book compared to the dictionaries of other languages. And it just seemed like there weren't many words for things. Like, you know, for example, like in English, you say accelerate. And, you know, in Kiswahili, I'm like, ongeza kasi. You know, it's like, you know, using many words to describe something for which other languages have a single word for.
Yes.
And so, you know, do you think is this accurate depiction that we have a limited vocabulary in Kiswahili? And how do you get around that? Because you have to describe new worlds. Are you creating a completely new vocabulary?
No, I don't believe that we have a lack of vocabulary, scientific vocabulary in Kiswahili. It's just people don't go deeper and research. Remember, like medicine, even during our great-great-great-grandfathers, the people are getting sick. And some people are treating them. So you can say they knew some kind of medicine, although it was different kind of medicine. What terms were they using? So I believe Kiswahili had the vocabulary just to go deep. Okay. Like I went deeper and got all the vocabulary.
I see. But, you know, as new kind of technologies, new concepts enter into the world, like, you know, even the French have to come up with a word for a cell phone.
Yes.
You know, and all of that. And that kind of thing. So the world is evolving and language has to evolve with it. So what is the process by which, this is two-part. One, what is the process by which, in general, words are added to Kiswahili? I used to hear this rumor that I'm so eager for you to confirm, that there's a baraza of old men in Zanzibar somewhere who invent words, and then they are so slow. Like by the time they've told us the word for computer, I mean, they're like, 5 years later, tarakilishi, it's too late. We're already saying computer.
No. In fact, those words, tarakilishi, computer, and so, they were created by a Kenyan called Professor Nabuhani. He's late right now. He created for TV and the computer, runinga, and the mobile phone. And so so it's not a formal process. He just uses it and popularizes it. Okay, there is usually a process. It enters the... Okay, I wanted to remind to remind a bit of history of the languages. Even the language you're using right now, English. Did you know that English borrowed around 80% from other languages? Like most scientific terms of English borrowed from Greek, from Arabic. So I think even Kiswahili can go that way. For those terms that new terms are coming, they can be absorbed, and then we go scientific so that it becomes a language just like the way English it was. English did not have enough vocabulary to cover all those scientific issues. Okay, I see what you mean. So, okay, language is living and breathing, but who is the kind of panel of people who say that this is Kiswahili Sanifu? Okay, right now in Kenya, we are soon a baraza like Kiswahili is going to be started. Usually there's a process. If you learn and get a PhD, usually there's a process of, if you go and get into vocabulary problems of Kiswahili, there's a procedure on how to get the words. One, for example, I'm looking at a scientific word. I want to look, let's say, nose, and there's no word like pua in Kiswahili. And I want to know what is nose. So the first thing, if I identified it in Kiswahili, there's standard Kiswahili and there's Lahaja, the dialect. So the first thing, I go to the dialects. All the dialects, and there are so many dialects. Go to Zanzibar, Kipemba, I go to Lamu, Kiamu, I go to Mombasa, Kimvita. So if I don't find these words in the dialects, that's another step. You go into the languages that Kiswahili borrowed heavily from. And most of it, it's Arabic and then Portuguese and Indian. So you go check these words again. If you get them, you can Swahilinize them. If you go there and you are stuck, you come back, you go to the Bantu languages. Now, after the Bantu languages if you don't get the word, then in Kiswahili you call it tohoa. You just borrow the word and Swahilinize it and
come a computer with a K.
Yes, computer. Yes, computer, televisioni, bicycle, and so many other words. Awesome. So what is the favorite word that you've had to tohoa? As you write your science fiction
as I was
writing. Okay, in science, there are so many words I had tohoa because they are nowhere. You remember again, when you are writing a novella, you are communicating. So the moment your language becomes very tough, that's a barrier to communication. So nobody read your novella and say, hey, no, what are these? But if you tohoa, at least somehow, you see,
it can connect in your brain.
It can bring, and then you look for it's easier for you to connect with the English word. There are so many words that I had tohoa, which
I mean, I had just a list here. Okay, let's do a rapid fire. Okay, alien, Majanabi. We just talked about that. Robot. Roboti. Laser beam.
Mwangabia.
Oh, wow. Force field.
Force field. Uzifo.
Uzifo. Wow.
Yes.
Black hole.
Black hole. Tundu Jeusi.
I can see that. Black and hole. Okay, I can see. Science fiction.
Sayansi Bunilizi.
There we go. Wow, that is great. This is I'm learning so much. Okay. So just as we get to closing, this is the Nairobi Ideas podcast, and we want to kind of hear what your big idea is for society. And I know you're doing all of these cool things. And so I just want to kind of take it up a notch to the highest level. If I was to ask you, what is your big idea? What is the world you dream of at the very high level? What are you working towards?
Okay, my world that I dream of, one thing, I believe that Africa, we are being called developing world or third world. And the reason is that we are not using some of our, we can call weapons, development weapons. And development weapon, the greatest development weapon is the language. If you go to China, what language are they speaking? What language are they using? And even they learn their science in Chinese. They are learning science in their first language. So it's in my dream, I'm dreaming where Africa, we can come together and just choose maybe one language. When we are choosing the language, we have to choose a language that has gone beyond country barriers, and it's only Kiswahili. The other languages, if you look at them, they are enclosed in a country.
I see what you mean. So this is interesting because the idea of, there are two sub-ideas within your big idea here.
Yes.
One is the idea of learning in your native language and how that's intuitive and natural and great. But then there's also the idea of languages are unifying in Africa.
Yes.
So Swahili, I think, is the most prevalently spoken African language, and even geographically we're interconnected where Kiswahili is spoken. But now the idea of saying all of Africa, let's speak one language, then that would be an imposition in the same way that English and French were imposed, because they're not Kiswahili is not everyone's native language.
We can start with East Africa, for example. We can start slowly and go wider and wider. We widen the net. But I believe that the moment our kids, look at this, when a Kenyan kid, just imagine from the rural area, goes to school, which language does the kid know before going to school? He knows mother tongue and some bit of Kiswahili. But when he goes to school, which language he start learning? First, he start learning a new language. Then, as he's fighting, struggling to learn this language, again, the science, the maths are also taught.
Terminology is being added on top, and
then they are taught using this new language, which is struggling. So the kid has two barriers. One, the language barrier. The other one, remember, science is not an easy subject. Then the scientific barrier. So it becomes very difficult to get African inventors. By the time the kid knows science, he's already an adult.
Okay. May I just offer one counterexample? So, for example, in Tanzania, when I was an undergraduate, I actually spent one summer in Pangani in Tanzania near Tanga. So I worked in Pangani Primary School, and their instruction from class 1 to 7 is in Kiswahili.
Yes.
Yeah, and so actually I had to go through this kutoha where I have to sit down and think, okay, what is the word for? Because I was teaching hesabu.
Yes.
What is the word for, mkato?
Yes.
Like the gradient and all of that. And it was quite an interesting experience. And so these kids are doing what you're describing. They're learning in their native language.
Yes.
But we're not seeing that kind of explosion of innovation and progress that you're imagining in this world. So what is the gap? What is not happening?
Okay, the gap I can say is our attitude towards African languages, the Kiswahili. I did a research on my PhD, attitudes towards the language Kiswahili. So if you just look, even in Kenya, English is ranked up and Kiswahili down. So the moment we change our attitudes, because if you go to these developed countries, the secret is they are very proud of their languages. If you go to German, you want to do a PhD, for example, they'll tell you have to learn German. They'll put you in a college, you learn German. But look here, it's our attitude first. If you love something, you will just love it and you internalize it and you will make it grow. So it's our own attitudes. That's why we are still down, because we are looking at anything that is African, especially Kiswahili, down. It's only Kiswahili, nothing more.
Okay, this is a really big idea, guys. Kiswahili is a weapon.
And
we've been sitting on it this whole time.
Yes, and I've written a novella on that. a story starting from the slave trade, but it's not coming out. It has not come out yet up to the future of Africa.
So, I mean, I definitely, this idea that language is potent and powerful,
very, very powerful,
resonates with me and many, probably many of the listeners as well. And so for, those of us at home, including myself, who obviously studied Kiswahili all of these years. Actually, I was quite good. I got an A. You'd be glad to know that I got an A. My inshas would have just wowed you. Every day. Nilikuwa naamka kwa ghafla in every insha.
I hope you carried some here. You could have read them.
So, but what advice do you have for us? Because we learned Kiswahili, we're, fluent in it, but in this kind of Kenyan style that because we don't really go deep, we don't expand our vocabulary, we don't use it day to day professionally.
Yes.
What advice do you have for us who are just, interested in the language, interested in the cultural heritage, to kind of build our depth?
We have to go back and love our African in us. The moment we love African and we see it as superior than any other civilization, that's where we'll start. And that's the starting of development. The other developed countries are very proud of their cultures and their languages.
But can you say now that we are a dual language nation? Is there room for this kind of vision of Kiswahili rising in dominance, and we are proud of it, to coexist with this kind of idea of we learn global languages and we interconnect?
Because remember, our models are just the developed countries. Like China, they learn Chinese, but they are there. They are a superpower, and they learn also English. So we can learn our scientific in Kiswahili and then learn the English language for now interconnection in the world. Okay,
this is great. And so, there you had it first on the Nairobi Ideas podcast, where Hamisi's big idea is that Kiswahili is the answer, and that we should reach back into our language to look forward.
Yes.
So where can we find your books? Where can we find you? What is your website?
Yes, my website is www.hamisibabusa.com. You can see everything about me. And then my books are all over the country, in Nairobi Textbook Center in Kijabe Street, and all the bookshops. If one cannot get it, can email me and I'll make sure I send. I even post them using Securica, so they can email me at hobbabusa@gmail.com. I want people to know that Kiswahili, there are those who are saying Kiswahili, science, no, that's impossible. So I want to show them we can go.
I see. Okay, and so just in closing, we promised the listeners that we would give them a quiz, and the first person to write to... okay, how should we do it? To write to you or to us?
To
write to me, yeah?
Yes.
So the first person to write to contact@mawazoinstitute.org with the answer to this question will get one of Hamisi Babusa's books.
Okay.
So what is the quiz?
The quiz is the label, the teeth of a human being.
The whole set. Okay.
The whole set.
Let's pose this question Kiswahili. Sasa.
Chukua kalamu, andika aina ya meno ambayo mwanadamu ako nayo ndani ya mdomo wake. Aina ya meno ya mwanadamu yaliyo mdomoni mwake. Aina yote ya meno na kazi zake.
Okay, kwa mfano like, molar, incisor.
And their work. Okay, and what they do during the digestion process.
Okay.
Yes.
And just to add a little bit extra here, we'll get you one of Hamisi's novellas.
Safari ya Tonge, digestion system.
Safari ya Tonge.
Yes.
That's wonderful. And Mawazo will give you, let me see, what is a good on the fly? Credit worth 250 shillings.
Yes.
Okay, so here we go. We have just created a great prize together. So thank you so much, Hamisi. I'm so excited by the work you do. You're so inspiring. Your excitement is infectious, and I can't wait to read your books.
Also, thank you very much for nominating me as one of the...
the public nominated you, and our judges were impressed by you, and we're so thankful to have you be a face of Kenyan science.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. Yeah. If you want to listen to this episode again, or if you want to hear more from the Nairobi Ideas podcast in the future, you can find us online permanently at www.mawazoinstitute.org. And for the next few weeks, you can also find us at www.africascienceweek-kenya.org. You can also subscribe to the Nairobi Ideas podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. Big thank you to our sponsors, the L'Oreal Foundation, Johnson & Johnson Innovation, and the Next Einstein Forum. From all of us here at Mawazo Institute, thank you and keep it nerdy.